G'day, how's it going? Bit of a different video for the old Khan today. I want to do one probably about the most important thing that I've done to date, which is becoming a dad. For those of you who follow me on Twitter, you'll know that it has basically turned from a gaming Twitter into what would look like a baby blog. I am completely stoked on my son. He's a legend. But what I want to talk about is because it's been a week, we're in that initial week period, so it's been establishing routines, getting the feeding schedule, having the community nurse come out. But today I finally had a chance to sit down and record something because I want to commit this out there and really put it out because I'm very amazed by the whole thing, and it's taken me this long to actually, I think, wrap my head around the experience. Um, so, to begin with, a bit of background, my wife and I decided we wanted to have a child. We tried, we were very lucky, and I mean very fortunate, and I'm very thankful for it that we were able to fall pregnant. Naturally, it took a while, and I started to get a little bit nervous, only because I'm a paranoid git, and I used to live in a town where there was this contamination, and rather than give you superpowers, it gives you potential cancers and all kinds of things like that. That aside, one of the other side effects is potentially fertility problems, and it was getting to the point that, like, when you're a kid, you're taught in high school, like, don't even hold hands, in your PE class. It's like if you even so much as breathe in a woman's direction, she'll get pregnant. And then you try to it and you learn, well, not only do I have to face a certain way, I've got to do it on the right day, under the right orientation of the moon, with the correct crosswind. It's it's a lot more difficult than we give ourselves credit for. So we finally fall pregnant, and I remember very clearly I came home and Ali had always said we're not allowed to buy any clothing, anything for the baby. No baby stuff, no clothing until we fall pregnant because it's bad luck. So I'd been out playing some Warhammer, came home, had a shower, pulled the bed back, and there's a baby onesie with a little Star Wars thing on it. So, and I just teared up. Like, I know it's not cool for an Aussie bloke to admit this kind of stuff, but stuff it, mate. Like, I teared up immensely. It was great, you know. So then we went into the whole thing. You got to keep your mouth shut. You got to wait for that magical 12-week period where, there's a lot of, you can get a bit dicey in that 12 weeks. So buttoned up. We did tell our parents, which was good fun. Being a smart ass that I am, I think I might have told both of them a different way. Like, I went to my parents and I ragged Ali out for not being able to buy the right size shirt. I pulled out the little baby onesie and got both my parents crying. So that's two out of the family that I managed to get, and the other two I got at Christmas time, which was lovely to share that. During your pregnancy, there's a lot of different things that can go on that I didn't know about. To be honest, it's all learning curve to me, and that's partly why I wanted to share this, just because there's things that can happen. So hopefully, if anyone out there decides to start a family, here's some things so maybe I can share and maybe it can help. We went and did the glucose test. So they get you to do this test to test for a situation called gestational diabetes. In short, during pregnancy, your body and your hormones go all out of whack, and you can have things happen like basically developing diabetes when you haven't had it. And there's two types. You can have diet controlled diabetes, where you just got to make sure you eat the right thing, and then you can have the insulin gestational diabetes. We were lucky. Ali was 0.01 over, like the barest minimum to make it clinical. And they said, yep, just to be safe, you have to check your blood sugars all the time. So it was great. We changed all our dietary stuff and we managed it. And aside from the couple of times we pigged out on Indian food, we never had a problem. Now, the reason I explain this gestational diabetes stuff is because it comes into play with how the actual birth plays out. So there's a rule with gestational diabetes that they don't like for you to go past your due date. The reason is they have to monitor you. We had to get all these extra scans, which was great because Bonza, mate, I ended up getting free 3D imagery, and we ended up getting free ultrasounds throughout the rest of the pregnancy. So we got extras. You usually only get a couple and that's it. we got extra ones. And in fact, I got to see a 3D picture of my child's face at about the 37 week, I think it was, 36, 37 week scan. Wild. It's a wild thing to live in a time where you can see a almost perfect photograph of your child before they even enter the world. That was also pretty amazing to sit through. So we went to the doctors, or the midwives, the antenatal clinics, and they said, yep, we're going to induce you, and we will book it in for your due date, which was the 9th of August. And then they realised it's the weekend, so they didn't want to do it on a weekend, so we got pushed back. Yeah, apparently that's just the way it is. But the process was explained to us, and then we went back and sort of did some research and things, and then it became a bit different at that point. I had my head wrapped around how it was going to work, but it was a very different experience. We went in on the 6th, and they basically give you this medication called Cervidil. For propriety's sake, I won't go into how it's administered because it's a bit graphic, but it tricks your body. So it's supposed to trick my wife's body into thinking, yes, it's go time. So we turned up at 7, about 7:15 in the morning on the 6th. They administer the medication, take us over to the maternity ward, which, by the way, as everyone knows, thanks to the current situation, we're still dealing with COVID. We're very lucky. I was worried that it was going to get really strict in the lead up to this, but I was stoked. We didn't have any major league things. We did have to wear masks all the time. So those of you who follow me on Twitter, I may or may not have put a picture up with the mask. You had to wear it pretty much all the time outside of your rooms and stuff like that. And we were lucky because we pay top health insurance, so they gave us a private room, which was fantastic. We're sitting there, and Ali starts to feel a bit, contraction-y. So I'm going into being an AIN. I'm just like, this was my coping mechanism, I think, and it plays out throughout the rest of the birth, is I just went into this sort of space, and I'm like, I'm just going to approach this, compartmentalize it from that perspective. Didn't work. I will admit, didn't work. It's your wife, it's your loved one. You can't compartmentalize that. So I was being an idiot. But she gets up, water breaks. I'm like, all right, go out to the hallway. Didn't see a nurse immediately, so I'm like, bugger it. Gloves on, go and get linen, come back, help her out, find a nurse, give like a handover, like how far apart the contractions are, duration, all that kind of stuff. And they say, right, we're going to do a scan and hook you up to this monitor. It's called a Toco, and it basically monitors the fetal heart rate and the contractions, basically, to see where you're up to. It's pretty cool. It's like an old graph paper going out of a machine, which was fun to watch. Didn't understand a word of it. Couldn't make out any of it, whether it was good or bad. But we sat there with this machine on waiting. Then the other thing I want to mention is we also didn't find out the sex of our child. We decided to keep it a surprise, being our first child and also being the first grandchild for my side of the family. It was a nice surprise for us. Anyway, Ali didn't hear this, but this did happen. They come in and they do the ultrasound, little portable ultrasound on the baby to make sure it's in position, head down, ready to dive. And the doctor sort of goes, yep, she's in position, and leaves. Now, what I love about that is the ambiguity of that. I'm like, did she just ruin the surprise that I now know I'm having a girl, or is she meaning Ali is ready to go? So I actually, for a moment there, thought, they've just spoiled the surprise for me. But Ali hasn't heard it, so luckily she had bigger things to worry about. The contractions were hitting her very hard, and we'll touch on that in a little bit because this gets worse. We're there, we're waiting. At one point, even though her water is breaking, like her water's broken, they're like, she's not in active labour. So they sort of turn to me and go, you're going to have to leave at 10 o'clock when visiting hours are done. Shattered. And I hope she doesn't mind me saying it, but Ali got a bit upset as well. So I had to go out and basically sweet talk and say, look, if you kick me out, I'm just going to go and sit outside the ward. If you kick me out of there, I'm going to go sit in the entryway. If you kick me out of there, I'm going to stand in front of the hospital. If you kick me out of there, I'm going to go park down behind the hospital and sleep in my car. So I'm not going home. There's no point in sending me home. Luckily, the nurse was really awesome. She was fantastic, and she basically said, look, I'll make the case that it's better for mum and bub to not stress them and have you here. So thank you very much, especially given everything that's going on. I really appreciate that. Luckily, there was no chance of that because very quickly she went into proper labour. And trust me, you know the difference. It's that hand-braking, clenching your fist sort of thing that she was doing to me as we got transferred over to now the birthing suite. So again, mask up, off we go to the next wing. And this is where things start to get a little bit dicey in terms of the contractions got really intense. Now, the way to think about contractions, it's like when you sit and watch the ocean and the set of waves comes in and they crash and then there's a break, like a little stop, and then the next set comes in, right? If you're a surfer, you have to actually swim out through that, and you're lucky because you wait till you get through the first lot of waves and then you quickly make as much ground as you can before the next set hits. That's the same with your contractions. You're basically trying to catch your breath in between them. The problem for Ali was there wasn't a lot of break. Now, I strongly suspect, having done some research after the fact, that she had a bit of a reaction to the Cervidil, which can happen, and it creates really intense contractions. And a friend of mine who she had been through an induction told me that, yes, that can happen, and to brace yourself. And I knew this going into it, but I didn't expect it to hit as hard as it did. So my poor wife, she's getting absolutely flogged 8 ways from Sunday by these contractions. And I'm just like, right, well, we'll do this, we'll do that, hold your hand. And she wanted pain relief, she wanted the epidural, but there's sort of a school that says don't take an epidural as well. And I think that was at play. I'm just, no shame, no judgment, that's just what happened. So she bore with it for a while, ended up getting her into the shower because they do suggest walking helps with the gravity and the movement, and also get her in the shower, and the heat from the shower will help, heat packs and that kind of stuff. So there I am, towel wrapped around. I was basically like an assistant midwife at this point, like I was doing a buddy shift. So I got the towel around her, washing her down, and that helped. Then they couldn't get the monitor to work. And it's crazy because they're just like 2 elastic straps with a little monitor sitting there and off to the side, but it just wasn't holding position, it wasn't getting a reading. So we actually had to take her back to the bed. And at this point, the midwife was like, oh, you're actually pretty good at this. To which I explained, well, if I had 6 years as a carer, I'd hope I was a little bit better than that. But she loved that, so she started then tasking with things like taking Ali's blood sugar every hour, and which is good because you're holding Ali's hand, right? She's crushing my hand, and I'm like, that's all right, love you. Okay, we're going to get through this. Okay, just pull that finger back so I can prick your finger. It was a pretty weird experience to do that. We then get a bit further in, and the pain is getting a bit much. So they concede and say, why don't we try NOS? So, you beauty, the Fast and the Furious. We're going to hit the NOS, we're going to speed this baby up. No, not really. That didn't work. The pain relief from the nitrous oxide did not help at all. Ended up, we're now reaching like 10 o'clock at night. So keep in mind, we've been there from 7:15 in the morning to now we're talking 10:30. I should mention this was being the 6th. There was a lot of speculation on my family because it was actually the 6th was my late grandfather's birthday. So there was a lot of, wouldn't it be interesting if the baby arrives on that day? Once at about 10:30, I went, yeah, this baby's not coming today. I think we're in for a longer trip. But you have to lie. And blokes, I'm telling you right now, no matter what, just yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir, full encouragement. That's your job. You're there. They're going through hell. A lot of people said, congratulations, proud of you to me. And I'm like, no, mate. She had the hard job. Most I had was I had to take my wedding ring off because Ali's grip was so ironclad it was about to cut my fingers off, crushing it against my wedding ring. I married a strong woman, I'm telling you. And she got freakishly strong with this pregnancy. It was insane. So we took so long that the midwife that was on with us, her shift ended and the next one came on. Okay? When she left, I turned to my wife and I say, "Have you got something you wish to say to this new nurse?" And my wife just goes, "Epidural now." At this point, she's getting contractions like bang, bang. They're just so close together. And the length of them is such that she doesn't get a chance to breathe. So she's just getting flogged and fatiguing. Ended up getting a bloke come down, anesthesiologist, there's a good word, to hook her up with an epidural. And there's nothing like a bloke saying to you, "Now I'm going to stick this needle near your spinal cord and it could paralyze you. So if you could just hold steady, that'd be gravy." Yeah, doesn't work like that. So at this point, we're just tired. I'm trying to keep her steady, they have to sit her up on the edge of the bed, they have to clean the back, they have to do all this stuff. I've never seen an epidural given, so it was an eye-opening experience for me. At this point, I'm starting to get a bit nervous because my wife is like really, what I was worried about, and this is something that I was worried about going into it, was that they had waited too long and she would miss out on the epidural because there's a cutoff point where they just go, "That's it." So if you're thinking about having it, go in with a very, very solid plan and stick to your guns. Like, if you want an epidural, by all means, get it. But make that with the nurses straight away. And they're really good. Like our midwife, there's a little chart on the wall and she was like, "What do you want to do? Is dad cutting the cord? Is this happening? Is this happening?" Yep, good. Wrote it all down. So the next person comes on, they can look at the wall and go, "That's what they want. Go by that." I don't know if it's like that in other countries. I've got to assume there's similar sort of stuff, but this is what happened with us. So at this point, I noticed the nurses are starting to check Ali's temperature as well. And there's a thing nurses do, and AINs do it too sometimes, is you will do something and then you shoot each other a look, that eye coding. And I noticed the nurses and the doctor were starting to do it to each other. They started to eye code like, And then I'm getting snippets of it and I'm looking across and I'm seeing the temperatures going from 36.6 up to like 38.4, nearly 39 degrees. And I'm like, that's not good. And Ali's starting to fatigue. Now, one thing I've had happen in my time as a carer is I've actually been present and been one of the primary caregiver at the time when a person, like a lady that we were caring for, actually ended up with sepsis. She came to us with sepsis, and I actually had the misfortune of having to basically care for her while she was dying, and she went pretty quick. Not great. So I'm sort of sitting there looking at my wife as she's rapidly fatiguing. Her temperature's going crazy. They're doing blood sugars on her and they're starting to spike, whereas all of her blood sugars have been fine up until this point. So something's wrong. Okay, something's definitely going wrong. And this is where I start to get really nervous. So I'm starting to think, like, am I watching... Basically, for a minute, I thought I was watching my wife die. I'm not trying to be snarky or anything like that, or like dramatic is the word I'm looking for. But I was seriously worried because I'd had a nightmare about it going up to it. And I could see these nurses eye coding and running out of the room and coming back and drawing blood and snipping off, and they're trying to hook extra fluids into her. They're trying to hook... She had cannulas in both hands. Like, it was starting to get... I'm like, you have an idea in your head of what a birth's going to be, and it's not pleasant. I didn't go in there thinking it was going to be like, out we go. But I didn't think it was going to be like this. And you know when things are going, and you know when things are starting to go wrong, and you can read it in the room. So I'm trying to work it out, and I was terrified they were about to grab me and go, "We need to have a serious chat." That was probably the most scared I was in the entire thing. Excuse me a minute. So I was sitting there going like, okay, well, I'll just keep focused, keep it calm, keep myself calm. That's another big one. And they started putting more infusions into her. Then they started hooking up like an insulin infusion, because the first time in this whole pregnancy she's had blood sugar issues. It's all been dietary up until this point. And the other reason with gestational diabetes, the other thing they want to monitor you for, and why we got all the extra scans, is gestational diabetes, you can end up having a very large child. and it gets to the point where like you can't physically and safely have the child. You've got to get a Caesar or something. They might need to intervene. So I'm running through my head trying to figure out what's going on, and having a tiny bit of knowledge is dangerous. And I'm thinking she's feverish, she's fatiguing, something's wrong. Is the baby too big? Can she not pass? Like, can the baby not be born properly? And Ali's just looking at me like, and she starts saying, "I can't do this," and it was intense. Now we're reaching up to like 11 o'clock at night. So 7:15, 11 o'clock at night. It's been a while. Her water broke at like 5 o'clock, and we're already up at this point. So we're 5 or so plus hours into this whole active labour. The doctor comes in, and they're just like, right, we've got it, and they start really hammering Ali like, you've got to push, you've got to, And the other thing you see on the movie is the woman screaming, like, just like, and Ali gave a few good screams, but they're sort of getting stuck into her, and they're going, you have to keep that inside, you have to channel that energy. And I had to laugh because I know there's 3 things you never say to a woman. Have you gained weight? You're acting like your mum. Calm down. So they've come into Ali and told her to calm down. And I love my wife. She shot this woman a look like lightning bolts are about to come out of her eyes. I couldn't believe it. Like, out of this fatigued state, just to be like steely resolve and just hatred for this person. But she did, try and hold the breath in and push and do that stuff. The other thing they don't tell you about an epidural in the movies or anyone else is it protects you from some pain. It doesn't always work, but also it doesn't prevent you from the feeling of pressure. So she still had that pressure feeling. Now at this point, the nurses and staff are mucking around. I'm trying to just stay focused and be positive, even though I'm terrified, and I'm trying to show Ali that. So again, I'm still doing the regular hourly BGLs, even in the midst of all this. And reporting them back to the nurses. They ended up having to do what's called an episiotomy to help. So basically, not pleasant, but it is something they do, because basically you can have a really bad thing where the baby can't pass and then it's a Caesar, or the baby's trapped and it's basically getting stressed. So that's where we're up to. Temperature's still spiking, everything's still going crazy. They do the cut, and I'd always joked during the birth, but the lead up to the birth, that I am going to be standing at the top of the bed looking that way. I am not going around. I am not going to look behind the curtain. Yet in saying that, just like when someone tells you don't look down, you're going to look, aren't you? So when the midwife goes, oh look, your baby's crowning, we can see it. Naturally, my thing was to go. So things were seen. I got to actually watch the exact moment my child entered the world. And I will admit, this is probably a bit of weird humour. But I'm sitting there and they go, the head's crowning, right? So I look, and all I can see is this tiny, sorry ladies, I know it's not tiny, this tiny little thing. And I'm sitting there looking at that and going, my kid's a friggin' elf. It's a gnome. It's only like this big. Yeah, I forgot that the skull actually deforms a little bit in order to pass. So the next minute it went from something like that to full head, and then shoulders and everything came, and I was just blown away, to be honest. It was wild beyond belief. And then the child didn't cry as such. It came out like doing little coos, and I will dig the video up and I will post it on my Twitter so you can see this, because it is insane. So the baby comes out, they put it on Ali's chest, they do the skin to skin, which is supposed to be really important. It helps the baby's temperature, helps with bonding. And Ali looks at me and she goes, what is it? And I'm like, well, it's a baby. Being a dense, strung out dude that I was. We're now at like 1:40 in the morning on the 7th. So I look at the doc and I like the midwife and go, well, what is it? And she just lifts this little, like, it's so casual, just lift the leg. And there's his little Ding Dang Doodle, and it's a boy. So I got to have a son when I was expecting a girl, and we now have an heir to my household, which is fantastic. Look, I gotta be honest. In the lead up to the birth, everyone was saying, "What do you want?" And I just said one word: healthy, and I stand by that. That's all I wanted, and that's what I got. He is a champion, little Harland. He is so good, so strong, so strong. And he comes out and he's not crying, he's cooing and wobbling and making these adorable noises. And I am just like, nothing can explain how you feel when that happens. Like, there's no way. The the extreme just wash over you. And then Ali's holding the baby, and then eventually they say, Dad, shirt off, here's your kid. And my friend Cohen had told me that that first hold is going to be the most amazing thing you'll ever do. And he wasn't wrong. So I had this little baby up on me. I'm getting a bit emotional now just thinking about it. I had the baby up on my chest, and he's nuzzling around and he's making the coos, and it was just unreal. Just unreal. And then they do the waves and they put it on the heat lamp and they do all the stuff, and it was just mind blowing. Like, and then the midwives are going, "That's adorable. They don't usually make noises like that this young." And that's kind of been the tone for this kid. He has been just chill. Didn't cry so much. Even now, like, we had him home like 3 days before he learned to cry. Naturally, he did it when his grandmother come to visit. So first hold she gets and he starts bursting out crying. No correlation. It took me a while to convince my mother of that, but that's what it was. So they do all the follow-up stuff with Ali, fix the... And I think at that point, I don't even know what time it was at that point. Like, it might have been like 3 or 4 in the morning, and I went into the side room, because a birthing suite is like the initial doctor's area with the bed and all that stuff, and there's a little offshoot, usually if you're lucky, it's like a little lounge room with like a couple of chairs and a table. And I just crashed. I think I must have got... Ali said I got about 10-15 minutes sleep, and then I was straight back up. And we're back over to the maternity ward. Ali's had a shower now, and which is crazy when you think about it. It's like, oh, I've had a child, now I'll just have a shower and then go back over to the maternity ward. Little dude was chill. He was awesome. And I stayed for a while, and then I said, oh, I'm going to go home. Now, at this point, we are now, by the time I walked out of that hospital, it was about 8 o'clock the next day. So I'd been there for over 24 hours, with about 15 minutes sleep. I left Ali, went home, rang my parents, let them know. Well, we'd rang them earlier, that's right. We rang them earlier and sort of introduced them. They could hear him warbling away in the background. They were just saved. Both parents got phone calls. And I went down. I decided I was going to have a breakfast on the way home just to recharge the batteries. And then I was going to just go home, do my laundry, because I stunk. And like, my wife was so funny. I give her a hug and I go, "You going to be okay?" She goes, "Yes, go home. You smell terrible." So she was back to normal. Went home. I actually stopped off to get breakfast. And I had a dirty bacon and egg roll, had like 4 hash browns and a big iced coffee, and just smashed as much food as I could. And I have a tradition, which is, when you leave the hospital, the first animal that the father sees and the first animal that the mother sees becomes sort of like your good luck charm or your totems for your kid. Now, remember I told you that my grandfather's birthday was the 6th? I sit down and it's raining, it's miserable, it's windy, and I sat outside because obviously COVID, I don't want to sit indoors. And I just start eating, and a pigeon lands opposite me on the chair, bold as brass. And my grandfather raised pigeons, so I kind of took that as a bit of an omen. So I ripped off a piece of me bun and fed it, which probably pissed the cafe owner off. But what are you going to do? So I get home, put some stuff in the laundry. I'm just wired now because I've pushed past that point of like being tired. Now I've hit that manic sort of period where you can like legally be declared insane, I guess. yeah, it was just insane. You know, I made a few phone calls and then sort of tried to sleep, had a shower, tried to sleep, got up and went up. But by the time I hit the bed, I'd been up for, minus that 15 minutes, probably about 30, 34 hours maybe, something like that. Yeah, there's nothing like it. And even now, we've had him home a week and it's been fantastic. He eats, goes to sleep. I've changed probably more nappies than I have in my 6 years as a carer. Um, I'll try and put up a picture. We've got this ridiculous bin, and it's funny as hell. I'll put up the picture of me holding up the bags. Um, yeah, just just crazy. But I've been wanting to sit down and really record something on it because I used to be a snarky 20-year-old who'd be like, "Oh, you know, having a kid is nothing. Anyone can have a kid. It's not that big an achievement." I'll tell you right now, it's the craziest thing I've ever experienced. It's terrifying. It was wonderful. It was just insane. And what no one prepares you for is just how emotionally hit you are when you first hold your kid. So yeah, as an Aussie bloke, I just wanted to record that and just show that side of it. So it's taken me the better part of a week to sit down and really put it all together, and I hope it's been vaguely something to follow. But yeah, I just wanted to share that because it was crazy. And I love my wife, and I love my new son, and I just look forward to hanging out with them, and hopefully not putting them through that again anytime soon. But yeah, have a good one, and I'll catch you next time.